Welcome to Book Dull Night Season 2. Each week, Jessica Mary, Kay Lee, and Magdalene Ann launch into new worlds, discover unforgettable characters, and bring you the best bookish discussions under the stars. We're a cozy corner of the internet, so be sure to rate us, leave a comment, and join the polls after each episode. And don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss a chapter. Alright, you lit-loving Libranauts, grab a seat, grab a book, and join us as we explore some new pages. Welcome to Season 2!
Yay! Season 2!
Yay! Woo! So excited! Here we are getting to talk about Heartless Hunter by Kristin Ciccarelli, which I'm really excited to talk about because I got to read it when it came out because I was one of the reviewers when it made its American debut, and I really enjoyed it, and then I managed to get us copies of Rebel Witch, which comes out in February, I believe. So I'm excited to start this and then jump right into that after we're done this. And I'm very excited that you guys liked the opening 10 chapters and we didn't have to put this book down. And
yes,
I know how it ends. And so I can say that, you know, we're not going to be disappointed in this ending, especially because we have book 2 to pick up immediately. So
I'm trusting you.
We've got a couple series that we plan on doing this season, right? We've got this one, the Crimson Moth series, and then we are going to jump into Iron Widow afterwards, which sounds exciting, which is all big mechs, and you know me, I love robots, so that'll be super fun. So I have to be very tempered in my discussions with both you and Maggie, because I've already read the whole thing.
And I did not know that. So now I'm like, I'm going to say some dumb stuff and you're going to be like, I can't tell you.
Yeah, I foresee over the next 6 episodes, I believe, that we have for this. I'm going to be saying I can't comment on the matter for a lot of stuff.
This is going to be so annoying.
Excuse me. It is going to be...
You can't speculate with us.
I can't.
You cannot come up with the crazy shenanigan hypotheses that we're going to come up with. You're just going to you're just going to stay silent.
I know. And it's going to be hard. It's going to hurt me more than it hurts you at the end of the day. And I am rereading it along with you, so I am like not drawing on a year-old knowledge of the book, which is really fun to reread because I don't normally tend to reread books because I'm like, I know what's going to happen and I lose interest pretty quickly. But the nice thing is, from doing the podcast, we've been reading books at like 10 chapters a week, and so there's actually like a lot in between there because I've got those books plus the books that I have read for other reviews. So there's a lot in there to interrupt. So I don't remember everything exactly as it goes, which means be like, oh, right, that happened. And I don't have to be like, oh, why am I reading this again? Which is exactly what I felt like when I had to reread stuff for school, which is another reason I don't reread. And you can blame that entirely on Of Mice and Men.
Waiting for Godot.
Still waiting.
I had to read that like 3 times.
Only 3 times.
Only 3 times.
I read Of Mice and Men in 7th grade. Then they redid our curriculum. I read it in 8th grade. We read it in sophomore year. Then I moved classes, so I read it in junior year. Then I moved classes. They redid the curriculum. I read it senior year. Then I was an English major. And I took American Lit a few times because I transferred. And guess what I read again? That's right. Of Mice and Men.
I would refuse.
I
would have refused.
I wanted to put my head through a wall. Like, I can't do it. I just can't.
This is off topic, but
yeah.
I was thinking about rereading stuff that I had to read in school that I didn't like The Great Gatsby and Of Mice and Men in 1984, and seeing where I am now with my opinions. And I'm dreading it, but I might do it.
On that note.
Anyway.
On that note, season 2. It's
Season
exciting.
2.
I am going to read through the lovely back copy for Heartless Hunter for those who maybe have not read it and are looking to get into it and listen to our discussion first off. So it starts. On the night Rune's life changed forever, blood ran in the streets. Now, in the aftermath of a devastating revolution, witches have been diminished from powerful rulers to outcasts, ruthlessly hunted due to their waning magic, and Rune must hide what she is. Spending her days pretending to be nothing more than a vapid young socialite, Rune spends her nights as the Crimson Moth, a witch vigilante who rescues her kind from being purged. When a rescue goes wrong, she decides to throw the witch hunters off her scent and gain the intel she desperately needs by courting the handsome Gideon Sharpe, a notorious and unforgiving witch hunter loyal to the revolution, who she can't help but find herself falling for. Gideon loathes the decadence and superficiality Rune represents, but when he learns the Crimson Moth has been using Rune's merchant ships to smuggle renegade witches out of the Republic, he inserts himself into her social circles by pretending to court her right back. He soon realizes that beneath her beauty and shallow facade is something fiercely intelligent and tender who feels like his perfect match. Except, what if she's the very villain he's been hunting? So, very obvious enemies to lovers, right? It's literally advertised on the back copy. Which is what drew me into it in the first place, because, like, as I've said many, many times, I read trash, right? Give me some trashy romantasy and I'll read it every time, which is funny because if a book is like romance first, it's really not my scene. But things that are like a little heisty, I like, and I do like that because the opening scene for it is heisty, right? It's Rune going to her grandmother's friend's house to try and rescue her and doing so under disguise, and then finding out that the hunters have beaten her there.
She was late.
Yeah. And she's late by like an hour, like seconds or so. It's really not by much.
Right. Because the door's still opened, the clothes she finds in the mud.
Yeah.
Like, freshly torn, everything. Yeah. The horse is still going nuts.
Yep.
So yeah,
Yeah, there's a lot there, and there's a lot of world building there, especially with the brutality in this post-revolution era that they are in within. I actually forget what the world is called. I don't think it actually comes up in the first 10 chapters.
No,
but
it doesn't.
Yeah. But there is so much, and I know throughout the rest of it that they will continue to talk about the brutality of the revolution and what ultimately led to that. And it's very like the terror in France, where everything becomes this huge escalation. Right. First, you have a target that has ultimately overstepped their bounds. In France, it was the aristocracy. In this book, it is the witches and the witch queens.
Yes.
And then they get overthrown, and then there is a step further than that, and that's where we are now, is this step further, where we're like, okay, everybody else has to die too. And we're seeing that. And in this 10 chapters, we also get a big reveal for Rune's character, that she turned her own grandmother in.
Yes.
Like,
and I also kind of like that they didn't keep the secret from you. As in, like, how she showed her grandmom, the letter, and her and her grandmother came up with this idea to just turn her in. So that way it's either the grandmother and Rune die because Rune didn't turn her in and knew about it, or she turns her grandmother in and at least one of them survives. And so they had to come up with this plan. Yeah. And I like that it wasn't like this big twist later, like, oh, her grandmother already approved of this.
I enjoyed that too, and I remember liking that from my first read through, because I was like, as soon as it came up, it just felt like something that was going to be one of those, oh, remember when Rune turned her grandmother in? But that was because, but wait, there's a sound at the door. Kind of things that would just constantly go off like that. And I was like, please, for the love of God, no.
Yes.
And they do. They reveal immediately. what you said. And there's also another reveal, like a little bit after that, about Rune coming into her powers, because when she turned her grandmother in, she was like 16, so she's like 19, 20 now. And a little after she turned her grandmother in, while still mourning and reeling from the experience of having to do that and having to watch her grandmother be executed, which was very graphic in its description. I will say that outright, but it's with the age of the character being like 19, 20. I think some people say that this is YA, but I really did not feel like it was young adult. Like I felt like I would say new adult more. But like that graphicness is something I would come to expect in new adult, which is no longer an American category, but that's a rant for another day. There was that scene where she comes into her powers and she menstruates, right? Which is like a big thing.
That's how you find out if you're a witch or not.
Yeah. And her menstruation blood is black. And that's how she finds out, and she cries, and she's just in the bathroom at a party and just like terrified for herself and what's going to come, and how it feels that the sacrifice that her grandmother made is now like pointless because it turns out that Rune is also a witch. And I think that's a really powerful scene to have in the first 10 chapters. And it's only a flashback, so it's not even like the full scene. It's just like a paragraph or two about when she finally learned that. What I like coming out of that is in the magic system, right? All the witches cut themselves to get their blood to have fresh blood for different spells. And depending on the freshness and willingness of the blood, there's different effects that happen to the user. And to continue
and the power of the spell.
Yeah. And to continue to hide herself, Rune uses her menstruation blood. And I thought that was very clever.
Yes.
I really like that as a twist, because a lot of modern magic systems do have the blood magic, right? It's just like, it's messy. This is the sacrifice that I'm making, that I am cutting myself. I'm giving you my lifeblood. And that is what is doing the spell. And here it's like, well, I'll wait a minute and I'm not going to cut myself, which ultimately helps to hide her further. And when I first...
That's how the soldiers know, is they strip these women and see all the scars, and then they are like, it's a witch. So, and I really like that explanation too, like how we're after the revolution, we're in that period after, and you're just like, if she's a witch, how does she not cut herself? How does she not have the scars? And it's explained because she knows that if she cuts herself, she's in trouble. And then that sacrifice she made with her grandmother is pointless. Because if she's found out, then what was the point of all that? And I really, really enjoyed just how it's set up.
So then they go to, well, Rune, not quite they, because before we meet Gideon, there's actually that scene he's in the shower and he's washing all the blood off of himself. And he's just kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Not quite meditating, but like ruminating, I think is the word I'm looking for here, on what happened.
Yes.
And how even though he believes that witches deserve what they are getting to, like the punishment that is coming to them, the other guards that he works with, he has deemed to be overly fanatical in what they do, that they are reveling in the cruelness of what they do rather than, trying to save people, that it's a step too far toward villainy as far as Gideon is concerned.
Yes, so the punishment is deserved, but the brutality of it is not. And I like that, because I think we also learn that he is one of the ones that goes into the castle and kills two of the witch queens.
Yes, two of the three.
Two of the three. I thought there was four, but okay. Two of the three. And you find out a little bit later that that's actually not the case. He had to have his brother kill one of them. And I have a theory about that. Yeah. But I'm not going to go into it because you already know.
I'll tell you what. I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to turn off my camera so that you can't see my face. And
I mean,
what's your
I know you're
theory?
there.
I
I
know, but
still know you're there.
I know that you know
Um,
that I'm here, but now you can't. Now my face won't be so loud. So
um,
I'm gonna sit
uh,
back from my microphone. Now you can't.
basically, my theory is that even though he hated the witches, he was probably that lowborn lover of the witch queen Cressida, which is why he could not kill her. That is my theory.
That is a solid theory. I will give you that. That is a
Okay.
pretty solid theory. I'm going to turn my camera back on now.
Okay. I mean, it also doesn't make sense in my mind because he hates witches so much and deserves and thinks that he. So I think there's something extra, like maybe Cressida did something or
Mm-hmm.
not like cheated on him, but because I know you find this out in the first 10 chapters, like his sister was killed by witches, and so I don't know what happened to make him want to kill his said lover, but he
Mm-hmm.
couldn't kill Cressida. And then it's mentioned that Cressida there was a rumor that she had a lowborn lover,
Mm-hmm.
and you find out that he was lowborn at one point, and so my mind just connected the two because he's also like, I can't talk about this, like I can't talk about her, I can't talk about this specific person, and I think that's what ultimately she's setting up for, but I don't know. You do. I don't.
I I will say this throughout the points of view that you get. I mean, points of view. It's just Rune and Gideon that you get back and forth, but the way that they justify both sides of this is really great. I really thoroughly enjoyed that both sides have a trauma coming up with things. And to not give stuff away, I'm going to go back to Gideon in the shower, washing himself of all this blood. And then he goes to the opera, and Rune also goes to the opera, and they both kind of comment on each other being late.
Mm-hmm.
And through those 2 points of view at the opera, you have Rune who's like, I bet he's late because he just arrested Seraphine and now he knows where she is. And he has a talk with one of the commanding officers of the hunt, and he begins to suspect Rune.
He doesn't, she does.
Yes.
Because he's like, she's too dumb. Because
Yeah.
she does play it off really dumb.
She does
Really
play it
dumb.
really dumb. She does a really good job playing dumb, though. I will give her that.
She slipped, though. She slipped once. And that comes back later to bite her in the butt.
It does. I enjoy that slip up, though, because the slip up isn't like, oh, let me put together some incredulous things for you. It's an insult.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, well, maybe some people. I mean, ha 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 ha, look at the gold. It's so pretty. I have to go. Goodbye. I think that is really done very well. I think Kristin Ciccarelli does a really great job laying down things that come up later and even setting things lightly in the background to come up later.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
which I don't know about, but I'm only
all I'm going to say on that particular subject.
But that's the thing, and some authors do this very well and some authors don't, but like I feel like everyone that I'm meeting, every detail that is given, I feel like there is a reason for it. Like I don't think Bart is in there just to be in there as a potential marriage choice for her to get information from. I think he's going to be maybe not a big part, but maybe a part later on. I don't know. But it just feels like everyone we're meeting has some sort of connection that either she needs or she wants or she needs to avoid or whatever. But everyone has some sort of connection that we're meeting. And there's a way that they could be useful.
Yeah. I think that's also just a part of Rune's character, that Rune has to see like who is going to actually be beneficial to know, right? Because as the Crimson Moth, as this vigilante, as somebody rescuing witches of every rank, because everyone is vulnerable at this point, she's got to look at people and be like, can can I glean any useful information off of you? Or are you ultimately going to be a waste of my time and resources and keep me from rescuing these people?
Right. Right. I was just going to say, and then we have Alex Sharpe, who
Yeah.
is also, I wouldn't say a double agent, but he's loyal to his brother Gideon, and he's
Mm-hmm.
loyal to Rune. So he
Mm-hmm.
helps Rune with her ultimate goal of saving these witches, but he's also loyal to his brother, where he won't glean information from him, he won't betray him, he won't go let Rune go after him, sort of thing. And I think that's interesting because I mean, how can you not?
Yeah.
That's going to be a huge point of contention
It's,
later in the book.
yeah, and it's already such a huge amount of contention right
Right.
now in just this opening, right? Just this bare 10 chapters to lay the
81
foundation.
pages. 81
Yeah,
pages. Yeah.
81 page. It is a kind of hefty book, but 10 chapters. We know that upon meeting each other, Gideon was incredibly rude to Rune, and she's like, I don't know why you hate me. And then we find out that he was rude to her because his brother very obviously likes her.
Mm-hmm.
Rune maybe knows that Alex likes her and is choosing to be oblivious about it. And she has, in the past, attempted to glean information off of Gideon, and Alex has stopped that. And so we see that come up again because Rune invites him to the ball afterwards that she's holding after the opera. And nobody expects Gideon to show up. But she really wants him to because she's like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I need whatever information he has. And Alex is like, no, that is my brother, that is off limits, but also he's incredibly dangerous to you. He is one of
Mm-hmm.
the best witch hunters, and you are, in case you forgot, a witch. And then there is this scene on the staircase when Rune is like, oh, ha ha ha, let me show you around my estate, Gideon Sharpe. Ha 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 ha, it's so nice and pretty. And her brother is just staring daggers at her, and she's like, shut
Her
up.
brother?
No. Alex. Alex is staring at them as they go up the stairs. And he's like, what are you doing?
He
Hey,
literally
Gideon.
stops them. Yeah.
Yeah. And Rune's just like, knock it off. I have information to get. And he's like, you knock it off. This is above and beyond. And there's that whole fight there. Like, just in the eye contact, right? It's very, you're misbehaving in the supermarket and mom is mad at you.
Mm-hmm.
And she's just got these glares, just, right? Like, and Gideon comments on it in his point of view. He's like, well, that was weird. Like,
So I want to add two things, if I can.
go ahead.
So one, Gideon's rude to Rune when he first meets her, not only because he knows Alex likes her, but because he's also attracted to her.
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't want to get into the middle of that.
Yeah.
So I think that's very interesting because he says time and time again that she's so pretty and she seems like she's like a mystery. There's so much to her. And then she opens her mouth and I can't stand her.
Yeah.
I love that. Two, you find out that he's lowborn and this is not his type of party. His type of party is like with kitchen staff, with Tamlin playing his fiddle. And them just dancing and stuff. Three, I want to bring up the fact, and this is what I've been dying to say, and I've been so excited to talk about this all night, because three, he literally says to Rune, this is not my type of party. You wouldn't be able to handle my type of party. And she's just like, well, maybe I'll go, like, if you invite me. And he's like, don't make me call your bluff. And I'm like, this is such a Jack and Rose scene from Titanic. All I could think about was that third class party that Jack brings Rose to.
Yeah, and then she just fits right in. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I love the early on back and forth romance chicken that they have going on, where it's like, I'll bet my eyelashes if you bet your eyelashes. Oh, yeah? Well, I'm going to hold you here and have my hand just a little too low. Yeah, well, maybe I'm going to put my hand on your shoulder. Yeah, well, I'm going to brush your hair out of your face. And it's just like, I don't think you guys hate each other. And I think it's pretty obvious that you don't.
He puts his hand upon her hip. And when he dips, she dips, he dips.
A bit more, yeah.
Bit more.
And you know what? She was caught out in the rain, so she is
wet and she has a pulse.
Whew. Starting this season off strong.
Titanic references abound. Our
guitar references.
Tamlin and his goddamn fiddle.
Oh my god, this stupid Tamlin and his stupid fiddle. Anywho, you also learn at this party a little bit more about Gideon and Alex as kids. And you learn that their parents were very famous tailors and ended up being like tailors to the witch queens, that they were like the personal tailors to them. And so all of the items that they made were unique and only for them, and to get something that was made by them for someone who was not one of the three sisters was insanely difficult and expensive. And so Rune immediately sees Gideon wearing this, like, not tux, but he's wearing a suit, and she's like, well, hello. And at first she's a little bit more interested in the suit than she is in Gideon. And she's like, oh my god, look at the stitching. Oh, you're nice too. Oh, but look at the tails here and the buttons. This is amazing. And she immediately identifies it as the work of his parents. Because she's like, that's insane that you have a piece of fashion like that. And he's like, yeah, well, of course I would. That's who my parents were. And the other thing we learn about Alex is that he did manage to secure payment to go to the Conservatory of Music to learn.
Yes.
And ultimately came back.
Yes.
More on that later. But that is information that we have now, is that he...
We also learn, I feel, that the two brothers view their relationship very differently. Like, Alex says that he's, we know that he's very loyal to his brother. He's protected his brother. He tells Rune that his brother's off limits. And then, so very, very close to him, as we're led to believe. And then Gideon says, because she says, I think Rune says something about at the opera, like, oh, your brother would be so excited if you came to this party. And he goes, my brother? No, I don't think my brother would be happy if I was there. And he's leading us to believe that they don't have as strong as a relationship as Alex is leading us to believe.
Yeah.
So I find that interesting too.
What to say about the Sharpe brothers? What to say about the Sharpe brothers? So, I will agree, yes, they both have a very different view on their relationship, period. I think it's very obvious up front, the kind of idea that they have, that they both believe they have to protect the other one.
Yes.
And the foundation for this has already been laid, but it very clearly has something to do with the night the witch queens were killed.
Yes, because I think they said, Gideon says Alex doesn't want to talk about it. He wants to just keep silent on what happened, whereas Gideon kind of made a name for himself off of it.
Yeah. And it's also something that Gideon doesn't talk about, even though he has made a name for himself off of that.
Right, but he allows it to be talked about that he has he doesn't go into detail why or the background or whatever, but he allows people to talk about how he's a hero and he's deserving of this. Whereas I don't know if anyone knows if Alex was involved, but if they don't, they're not going to, because they're keeping silent on that.
Yeah. Toward the end of this section, and remind me where you have left off.
The last bit is they're in the library, and they are talking about the conservatory and how Alex went and where did they get the money. And we have a flashback of the party scene that Gideon has attended in, as a servant, I guess, in the castle or whatever. And then I forget exactly what's said, but she's like, shall we continue with the tour? And then she pulls the cord to alert her servant to bring the cup, basically. The prepared cup.
So this is where the magic gets a little gross.
This is where the magic happens.
And it gets a little gross. It's one thing when Rune is casting illusion spells on herself, and so she's making runes essentially on her arm with her own menstrual blood. It is another when she is doing it on an object, because that's what she does for the truth teller spell. She takes her blood and she puts it on the cup.
The bottom of the cup.
Yeah. And that's where that was the first time that I was like, ew.
Yeah. So at first I thought it was like the bottom of the cup, like where the cup touches the saucer. And then I was thinking about it and I was like, well, if someone drinks from the cup, people are going to see the blood at the bottom of the cup.
Yeah, no, it is on the very bottom of the cup.
Yeah,
but
then
still.
She says no one really notices at the very end after they drank whatever it is, that there was blood.
But it's still gross because it's
menstrual blood. Yes,
it's menstrual blood. It's gross. There is one other big plot point that has been laid down in these first 10 chapters, and that is that guards are going missing and turning up very murdered.
Very murdered.
Very murdered. Not just like, oh, they're dead, but like their hearts are cut out. They are carved up. They have been drained of blood. Like they are very murdered. And everyone in the guard suspects the Crimson Moth, which makes it especially dangerous that Rune is the Crimson Moth and that they are finally on her tail because they found magic and sigils and things on one of her merchant ships.
Mm-hmm. But I don't, and I know you know this, but I don't think it is her because she comes across one of the guards and she's like, oh wow, he's really cut up and like dead. And like if she was doing that as the Crimson Moth, she would have known that happened. And also she could have collected the blood in a vial for her magic, and she didn't. She doesn't collect anyone else's as far as I know, other than Verity's. So someone else is killing the guards
and taking their blood.
They might not be taking their blood. We don't know.
No, they're just exsanguinating them, but then leaving it all there.
I mean, yes, we can assume that they're taking the blood, but listen, we don't have any proof. Remember, no body, no murder.
Oh, but there's plenty of bodies, so there has been murder.
Well, there has been murder, but there's no vials of blood. But we can assume it's a witch.
Yeah.
It's a witch.
I think that's pretty obvious too, right from the get-go, is that somebody is murdering them to take their blood to do some sort of spell, something obviously nefarious, especially if they're just kind of like, okay, you're done and I'm done with you, and they just drop it off. What are your theories going forward? And I can't comment. Go ahead. I'm going to turn myself off again.
Oh my gosh. There's something going to happen between the brothers because Alex likes Rune and Gideon are courting each other and all that crap. So I feel like Alex is going to turn evil at some point or go against Gideon and Rune. I don't know. Who knows? But that's my theory. Verity has a bigger part to play in all this because I know she's second in command to the Crimson Moth and helps Rune come up with plans and whatnot, as well as Alex does as well. But there's something more there. I know there's something more there. There has to be. Because she's taking classes at, what is it? The not the science university, but I think they said like bio university, bio lab. I don't know.
Yeah. She's basically like a science major down at the university. Yeah.
Yes. And so I know there's something more with that. I feel, I don't know. That's the only theories that I have come up with so far. Harrow who is Gideon's soldier guard friend, who's like, we think Rune is the Crimson Moth, and
Mm-hmm.
Gideon's like, no, she's too dumb for that. And Harrow's like, I would seriously rethink that. I don't know who Harrow is. I don't think we've met her yet, because at first I thought it was Layla Creed. It could have been
Yeah.
Layla Creed, but then they described her and it was nothing like Layla Creed, as far as I
Mm-hmm.
know. So I don't know who she is, but I also think she's a double agent as well.
Okay.
I think, honestly, I'm just going to assume everyone's a double agent.
You're like, I will not be caught unawares this time. I suspect everyone.
But, that leads me to believe, because Verity is trying to hook up Rune with someone to marry, to kind of, not for love or financials or anything, but to help, like, with connections and gleaning information for the Crimson Moth stuff. I think Harrow is setting up Gideon for, like, the same purpose. And I think, like, Verity and Harrow are, like, somehow connected, and they're trying to set up these two people so they stop being such jerks with one side. And then, this is me just theorizing off the top of my head now. But it's basically like Gideon and Rune are just like, hey, why don't we just work together and have the witches and people live in harmony? You know? I think that's the end goal for Harrow and Verity.
Okay.
It's just to come together under peace again. And the two main players getting together and loving each other, so that can happen.
Okay.
I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm gonna just shoot that down right now. That is not what happened.
And one of the witch queens is not dead. Cressida's not dead. I'll say that.
Okay. These are all good. I should write down when you guys theorize stuff and then come back around to it and be like, all right.
Remember that crazy idea?
Yeah. Yeah. Just
you
start
this
quoting.
Crazy idea scheme that these people all were double agents and working together.
Just start quoting you back to yourself. So you thought she was building giant magical robots at the university. And studies show that was a lie.
Oh, that was another theory. Sorry. I'm sorry. Rune is the descendant of one of the witch queens. Because they say, Gideon says that Rune is not biologically related to her grandmother, and that her parents were just some merchants who died or whatever, and her grandmother just kind of adopted her, but there's no biological. But I don't think that actually happened, because I think either she's a descendant of Seraphine, the witch she's trying to save, or she's one of the descendants of the witch queens. Because she, the witch blood can skip generations. It can skip multiple generations. So her parents may not have been witches, but I don't believe that. I think that was just a story.
Yeah, there's also a note in there about the witch blood and genes that, like, it just kind of appears that it really can't be predicted along the lines, like, obviously, the witch queens came from, like, lots of witchy breeding and things, and so their line was strengthened, but, like, everybody had the same potential to be a witch, which is part of what makes this aftermath of the revolution so terrifying, is that anybody can betray anybody. Sorry, Red Queen. Anywho, it, like, Gideon and Alex's sister very well could have turned out to be a witch herself.
Right.
And that would make their lives very awkward.
But didn't it say that normally if you were a child of a witch, you would potentially become a witch?
Yeah, it was more likely.
Yeah, it was more likely, but it could have skipped like 2 generations before it came back into your line.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that gene could secretly be there and you would never know.
Yeah. Which, I mean, like, in this particular world, that's kind of terrifying to think about. Like, that one day you're at a party and you get your first period, which is already awful. I just want to put that out there. And on top of that, people just want to kill you for just having that ability. Like,
What if you get your first period and it's black blood, but you decide not to be a witch? You decide not to do the blood spells and stuff. What would happen?
I imagine stuff would get pent up, or they would find out in another way.
Well, I mean, what if like someone married someone and they're like, "Hey, you have like black blood for your period." And she's like, "Yeah, but I don't do anything. I'm not a witch. Like, I don't have spell books. I don't do spells. Like, I'm a witch, but I'm not a witch."
Yeah. I imagine they would get turned in the same manner that Rune's grandmother was turned in. Not necessarily that like that person's like, well, I love you so much, I'm going to sacrifice you. But I mean that if they didn't turn them in, they themselves would also be at risk.
But the way that they're turned in and they're verified as a witch is the scars. So if they strip them and don't see any scars, like what are they going to do? Wait for them to bleed? You have to sit in jail for a month until you bleed.
Not only do I have to get my period, but I have to be in jail? Like, I'm gonna start doing magic now.
You're driving me to the point of magic.
Yeah, you're driving. That's a wrap on this episode of Booked All Night. We'd love for you to be part of the conversation, so don't forget to rate the show, drop a comment, and share your thoughts in our episode polls. And remember, subscribing means you'll never miss an episode as we launch into even more incredible stories together. Booked All Night is produced by Rob Cook, so when you share an episode, be sure to tag us at Booked All Night Pod on Instagram, Threads, Facebook, and TikTok, and give a shout out to our guy in the sound booth. For more updates and to check out the reading schedule and learn about upcoming interviews, visit link.bio/bookedallnight. That's lnk.bio/bookedallnight. Until next time, Libernauts, this is Jessica Mary, Kay Lee, and Magdalene Ann signing off and reminding you to stay booked all night.